Coming up on Rambler Sports Locker, we start off with a recap of this week's activities and all the things Loyola sports.
Plus, the city has been buzzing from the Chicago Marathon and fans are stirring over the upcoming Bull season.
I'm Sophie Colson.
And I'm Kirby Glass.
All this and so much more.
Rambler Sports Locker begins now. Fall break is over and I'm feeling refreshed to run through the end of the semester. How about you, Sophie?
Kirby, I am definitely with you. I am ready to embrace the cold. So were the runners in the Chicago Marathon that came to town this weekend. Therefore, we definitely have a lot to discuss. And as always, we're going to give you all the updates you need on Loyola sports.
Yes, the marathon was so invigorating, just like this past Friday's men's soccer match. What a weekend.
Now it's time for this week's Rambler Rundown, where we bring you the highlights from Loyola sports. Let's go over to Oliver Allen to see how our school has been doing this past week.
Welcome back to another week of the Rambler Rundown. The men's soccer team secured a 2-1 victory over VCU thanks to a go-ahead goal in the 83rd minute. With the win, they improved to 2-8-2 on the season and will host LaSalle on Saturday. Women's golf finished 12th out of 13 teams in the Loyola Parkinson Family Invitational, finishing 67 over par. Their next action comes in February for the Texas State Invitational. Traveling to Nebraska, men's golf finished in first place out of 12 teams, with 4 Ramblers finishing inside the top 10 of the Throwdown Up Top tournament. The Ramblers will travel to Dayton, Ohio for the Dayton Flyer Invitational on October 21st. Women's soccer shut out Davidson 1-0 on Sunday, improving their record to 8-2-5 overall and an almost perfect 7-0-1 at home. They'll host the University of Massachusetts Minutemen this Sunday. Cross-country season is underway as the men's and women's ran in the Bradley Pink Classic today and will travel to Madison tomorrow to compete in the Wisconsin Pre-National Invite. That's all for this week's Rambler Rundown. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Oliver Allen.
Now Rachel has some exciting updates on the Chicago Marathon and what took place on the streets of Chicago over the weekend.
The 2024 Bank of America Chicago Marathon ran this past Sunday. Approximately 50,000 athletes took the city streets for the 46th annual race. Runners from all over the world traveled to the Windy City. World records were broken and the finish line was a huge milestone for many runners. The race took off at 7 a.m. on a cold and windy day. The route led runners on a tour of Chicago through 29 different neighborhoods. The 26.2-mile race started and ended in Grant Park. Ruth Chepngetich of Kenya set a world record, finishing the women's race at 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 56 seconds. She beat the world record by nearly 2 minutes and redeemed her title after falling short in last year's race, where she was the runner-up. She had won both in 2021 and 2022. The men's race champion, John Korir, also from Kenya, finished in just 2 hours, 2 minutes, and 44 seconds. Korir dedicated his win to the late reigning champion, Kelvin Kiptum, who died in a car accident last February with his coach near their training facility in Kenya. Organizers honored Kiptum with a moment of silence prior to the race and offered runners a memorial sticker to add to their bibs. While the pros finished the race in just over 2 hours, casual runners took an average of 4 to 5 hours to finish. The final finishers spent almost 12 hours on the course before crossing the finish line. Many aren't focused on what place they get, rather it's just a huge accomplishment to finish what they've trained months for. The men's and women's wheelchair races were also historic. Men's champion Marcel Hug of Switzerland defended the title with a 1 hour, 25 minute, and 54 second finish. He finished just 3 minutes shy of his last year's record of 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 37 seconds. Another Switzerland native, Catherine de Brunner, took the win in the women's race with the course record of 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 12 seconds. More than 1 million spectators gathered to cheer on athletes, and signs filled the streets and provided joy and motivation for many. The race never falls short of anything but exciting and always brings an electric energy to the city on marathon weekend. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Rachel Lieberman.
Thanks, Rachel. What an exhilarating way to go into the new week. If I completed 26 miles, I wouldn't shut up about it. Shout out to all the athletes who completed the marathon this weekend. A conference honor has been bestowed upon our very own Rambler this past week. Here's Anushka Nair with the details.
Exciting announcements from the Loyola women's golf team. Fourth-year student Kate Reisinger was named A10 Golfer of the Week last week. She made her college debut during the Ball State Classic in September 2021 and has been impressing fans ever since. Reisinger said her father was the one who introduced golf to her at a very young age in her hometown of Park Ridge, Illinois. She was not always a golfer, though. She grew fond of soccer, but that got cut short after she started high school and chose to switch back to golf. She enjoyed a successful career all throughout high school, racking up several individual medals as well as all-state, all-region, and all-sectional awards. Head coach Carly Wervey-Swartz was Reisinger's first connection at Loyola, and she says that she played a major influence on her decision to commit to the school. Reisinger is now in her final year here and has taken on a leadership position guiding the young golfers through the season. She's already made big moves this semester by recording a top 10 finish, as well as her first under par round and lowest 54-hole finish in September. Reisinger will still be competing in the spring this year, and we wish her all the best. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Anushka Nair.
Thanks for that golf update, Anushka. Now, RSL has partnered with Loyola's men rugby this fall, but this begs the question, what is rugby? Caroline Lingen has the story.
With our newest partnership with Loyola men's and women's rugby, we thought, hey, why not explain what rugby is and the core elements of rugby? I took to the field to get a hands-on view of what rugby is. I'm here with Grace and Rory, and they're going to show us the basics of rugby.
First, we started with throwing.
Yeah, so whenever the ball goes out of bounds, we do what is called a line out. And so that's when the people are like lifted up into the air. And so usually the hooker will throw the ball in, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, cool.
So essentially, on a very basic level, you kind of put your dominant hand on one side of the ball, and then you'll use your other hand kind of as a guiding ball. So that will, or to guide the ball, and that will be a little bit more down. And then if you're holding it like this, you just bring it straight back. You don't want to angle it at all. And then you kind of spin it just a little bit towards you.
Gotcha.
Just like that.
I obviously had to give this a try.
And then bring it forward.
Nailed it.
like
Let's
that.
do it again.
All right.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next basic, passing.
Passing in rugby is pretty easy, but it's a little bit of rules to it. You can only pass backwards. That's pretty much the only rule to it. There's two kinds of passes that you're mainly going to see. One of them is called the 6 o'clock pass, which is like this. You're going to make a clock with your hands, and the ball is at 6 o'clock. So it's like this.
Okay. At 6 o'clock.
Just like that. Pop your elbows.
Next basic, kicking.
Kicking, there's a couple kinds of kicks. There's normal like punts, which you'll see a lot during the game, which is kind of like that. But then there's also what's called drop goals or drop kicks, where you drop the ball and then when it's bouncing up, you kick it. So that's going to happen at kickoffs, goal line drops, and 22 drops.
We brought in Max to help show us what tackling looks like. I know that's a pretty big part of rugby. Will you tell us a little more about that, Rory?
Yeah, so tackling, the main rule of tackling is you have to be below the sternum and you have to have an attempt to wrap. So you have to at least put your arms around a person and try to wrap them. You can't just football and shoulder stick them.
Personally, this was a skill that I knew I would be good at. I obviously had to give this another shot.
Yeah! Thank you, Max.
And that brings us to our final basic, the scrum.
A scrum occurs when there is a knock-on or a forward pass. A knock-on is when the ball is dropped forward by an attacker, and then a forward pass is a forward pass. So then on the mark where it happened, the ref will call for a scrum, which is when the forwards, all 8 of the fat guys, will get in like this and they will push and push and push and push until one team wins the ball or the scrum is collapsed, which happens a lot. And then it's out into open play.
Well, thank you, Rory, for joining me, talking me through the basics. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much to our men and women's rugby teams for showing me the basics today. And be sure to stay tuned for our coverage of Saturday's game, highlighting breast cancer awareness. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Caroline Lingen.
Thanks, Caroline. Kirby, have you ever been to a rugby game?
I've only been to one, but I definitely would have needed Caroline's segment before I went. I was thoroughly confused.
Caroline taught us a lot from that segment, definitely. Oh. Well, while rugby season is in full swing, the NBA season is just about to begin, and the Bulls open their season on Wednesday. Now let's turn it over to Brandon Wolak. He has all the details on the new season and game plan for the Bulls.
Thanks, Sophie. NBA basketball is back in Chicago. The Chicago Bulls kick off their season next Wednesday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. against the New Orleans Pelicans. After 2 consecutive seasons of underwhelming results, both ending with eliminations in the play-in tournament, fans are left wondering where this team will end up. The Bulls have recently been stuck in the middle, not good enough to make the playoffs, but not bad enough to secure a high draft pick. However, this season marks a new chapter for the Bulls. The offseason brought significant changes. Starting with the departure of forward DeMar DeRozan and a strategy aimed at getting younger, the Bulls traded the veteran player to the Sacramento Kings in a 3-way sign-and-trade deal for draft picks. Additionally, the team traded away all defensive second-team guard Alex Caruso to the Oklahoma City Thunder. These moves clearly signal a shift towards rebuilding. The Bulls next focused on bringing in that young talent. Shooting guard Josh Giddey was acquired in the Caruso deal, and power forward Jalen Smith joined the team after signing from the Indiana Pacers. The team also re-signed forwards Patrick Williams to a lucrative $92 million deal. Point guard Lonzo Ball, who has been sidelined for 2 years with knee injuries, is looking to make a return and could be a crucial factor in the Bulls' success early in the season. Lastly, with the 11th overall pick in the draft, the Bulls selected local talent Matas Buzelis, who has shown promise during preseason. With these additions, the Bulls are embarking on a youth movement with Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and Kobe White leading the quest to return to the NBA playoffs. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Brandon Wolak, sending it back to you, Kirby and Sophie.
Thanks, Brandon. We look forward to this upcoming season with the Bulls. Hopefully I can catch a game or two in person. This year's roster is something.
I can't wait to see how young star Josh Giddey fits in with the team. In breaking news, head men's volleyball coach John Hawks has left the university, taking a head coaching position at UCLA. Hawks was previously the assistant men's coach for the Bruins before coming to Loyola.
Before we end our show, let's take a pause as we remember the life and legacy of Dr. Lee Hood with Oliver Allen for this week's Ramble.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Ramble. I'm your host Oliver Allen, and today we have a special episode for you all. On October 8th, Loyola School of Communications professor Dr. Lee Hood passed away. Outside of her 15 years as a professor at Loyola, Dr. Hood served as the head of the Broadcast and Media Journalism Division of the Broadcast Education Association, held leadership roles in the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and was a 2018 recipient of the Edward L. Bliss Award for Distinguished Broadcast Journalism Education. However, Dr. Hood was far more than her titles and accomplishments, as her caring nature and presence as a mentor assisted many students in both their careers and personal lives. So, for today's episode, each panel member will share some of their favorite memories of Dr. Hood. Rachel?
What I'll remember about Professor Hood was just, as you mentioned, her caring nature, how caring she was, her warmth, the energy that she brought, never went unnoticed, and it just really lit up every room that she walked into, and it has felt a lot different since her passing in the School of Communication and just on campus, so that's what I'll miss most.
I could always tell in our one-on-one conversation that she was always there for me. I suffer from a hearing loss, and she was always very understanding about that and always accommodated for me in any way.
Well, I had Professor Hood as obviously a professor, but I just want to speak to more of her mentorship, because I feel like She was someone who was just willing to help always. She would look at my cover letters, my reels, and it just felt good as someone who's navigating through, journalism and your career, and someone who may not know the ins and outs, is someone as experienced as Professor Hood to like take the reins and kind of make you feel comfortable is what I think I'm going to miss most. And my favorite memory, I would say, was actually this summer. She called me, or she sent me an email that she wanted to submit an Emmy for Connect, the show in Professor Rogers' class. And then she kind of like sent me another email after I sent her everything I needed, and she was like, wait, like we should submit an entry for you, like personally. And I think that was like something that will always stick out to me, because even when like maybe I didn't even believe in myself, or other people may have not believed in me, she did. And because of her, I'm nominated for an Emmy. So I think it's going to be really hard just to be there at the award ceremony without her, because without her it wouldn't have been possible. So I think that was my favorite memory of Professor Hood, and that she loves to wear pink, because I love to wear pink too. So.
What I'll never forget about Professor Hood is just how genuinely she deeply cared and loved for all of her students. And I think it was so special to be able to have her 2 times, to be able to have a professor that just loved every single one of her students, whether you were talking to her one-on-one, in class, over email, during office hours. You could tell that she genuinely wanted to help every student that she had, and she cared and loved for everyone. And also she really genuinely cared and loved the field of journalism and broadcast journalism specifically, and she helped instill that passion for me. So that's why I'm here today and why I want to continue into that career. So I'll just never forget that she inspired me to do what I'm doing now, and how she cared and deeply loved for all of her students.
Well, that wraps up this episode of The Ramble. Be it as a professor, mentor, or friend, the legacy that Dr. Hood has left on Loyola Chicago will not be forgotten. Thank you to everyone who joined the show to share their personal memories. That wraps up this episode of Rambler Sports Locker. We'll see you next week, and don't forget to turn off the lights.